The second update.
Why does economic justice sound 1,000 times worse than social justice?
They announced this year that they are so excited, having had a very good year.
Having had a very good year. There's that Ivy League education at work.
Just for example, since January 1 of 2017, the value of a share of stock of McDonald's has gone up 25%.
Gotta love how much economic pseudosciences rely on stock prices, especially without a basis for comparison like how much the stock market as a whole had been doing, or specifically the fast food industry. One might think that profit margins would be more relevant, but of course that metric doesn't help them. Their quarterly profit margin is 21.4%, which, aside from a slump in 2015, is about where it's been for the last 7 years. The real reason for their stock going up is in part because of this very announcement, along with other cost-cutting measures, which may halt or even reverse the decline in their market share they've experienced in recent years.
Over the next little while, they are going to fire 2,500 cashiers at McDonald's restaurants.
2,500 cashiers? Oh no, that's like 0.1% of their entire workforce.
And replace them with automatic kiosks. That's their word for it, a machine, in short, that will do what a cashier used to do.
Does that include getting my order wrong every single time?
And why are they doing that?
Well, let's see. How many of these are in places where they've set ridiculous minimum wages of $15 or something? By the way, even before this, McDonald's cashiers were making more money than entry-level EMTs. Wolff doesn't have a clue that that's the case because the last thing he wants to do is look at how working people really live.
They are doing that for the same reason that McDonald's does everything else, to make money, to make greater profits.
The fiends! How dare they keep costs down and keep delivering food that people like at a price they can afford? I mean, you don't see that happening in socialist countries like Venezuela.
This doesn't exactly go along with creating America great again, does it?
Why not? Mechanization is exactly what's been doing it all along. If it weren't for that, we'd all still be working on farms and barely getting enough to eat. Maybe you should think about that next time you snarf down a greasy hamburger, which, from the looks of it, you've been doing a bit too much of. Just saying, I mean, you're clearly not someone who's been on Venezuela's socialism diet.
Because there's no prospect for McDonald's to lower its prices.
Of course, your wonderful government has been inflating the currency, so really, keeping prices nominally the same is lowering real prices, something else you neglected to mention.
This is partly a response to the fight for 15.
Oh, so you do know it's linked to minimum wage. Well, that's good. I'm sure you'll now be saying how minimum wages are bad because they price poor workers out of the market. Right?
There's a strong movement in America to get people, particularly folks like those who work at McDonald's,
Guess not.
to get their salaries raised up to the glorious sum of $15 an hour, barely enough to live on as it is.
$15 full-time is $30,000 a year, not counting benefits. That would put you in about the top 1% of income earners worldwide. Hey, I thought it was supposed to be a bad thing to be in the 1%.
Basically, what McDonald's is saying to them is what the business community has always said to people looking to raise their wages.
That they can't get money out of thin air? That doing so would mean they'd have to raise prices? That affecting the bottom line in this way always results in a loss of business, which would also result in having to lay people off?
You shall be happy with low wages, because if you protest, you'll get no wages at all.
That's the laws of economics saying that.
This threat,
This statement of reality,
is part of how capitalism has always worked.
No, it's how socialism has always worked. Self-righteous elitists like you keep puffing yourselves up to the people about how you're going to help them with economic pseudoscience. And when the inevitable happens, you don't take any of the blame. You laughably blame the businesses who were happy with things the way they were, but now have to face the realities of wrong-headed policies like the minimum wage. It's almost as ridiculous as Nicolas Maduro blaming capitalism for his people starving, even though he nationalized all the food industries. The more we let capitalism work, the better off people are. The more government inflates the currency and passes minimum wage laws and regulates businesses so much they have to pay more money just complying with the regulations than they make in profit, and on top of that have to pay the highest corporate tax rate in the world, the less able they are to hire people and the more incentive there is to automate.
Is it necessary for things to be handled this way?
No, it's only because idiots like you keep artificially imposing costs on businesses, and you still don't learn your lessons even when the reality of your psychopathic policies gets shoved in your face. You know these people will be losing their jobs because of minimum wage, and you're still blaming capitalism. Give me a break!
Because, of course, even though McDonald's is just saving the wages of those 2,500 people, we know socially that the costs of having 2,500 people suddenly become unemployed are enormous.
Yes, which is why you shouldn't have a minimum wage. I mean, really, that's staring you right in your stupid, smug face. And you know who you aren't mentioning? The people at other places that aren't as big as McDonald's, smaller businesses that can't afford to automate, that will shut down entirely. And you know why you're not mentioning them? Because you can't spin that as capitalist greed.
We live with the costs.
What you mean we, fat man? With your mad UMass money and enormous speaker fees coming in, I doubt you're sharing one single bit of the costs that those of us who have to actually work to pay our bills have to face. By the way, let me tell you something about this Richard Wolff character. One of his students, Yorios Papandreou, went on to become Prime Minister of Greece. Afterward, Greece's economy became so horrifically bad, Papandreou had to go against the socialist garbage Wolff had shoved into his head and adopt policies aimed at getting Greece's enormous debts under control. Papandreou learned his lesson, at least in part. Wolff still hasn't.
So here's an alternative. Let's have the kiosks. Let's save the labor of people. But the way we'll handle it is everybody else at McDonald's will have their work week reduced. Not their salary, just the work week.
McDonald's workers don't get a salary, dumbass. They're paid by the hour. Have you ever had a job like that? What you're talking about really is raising their hourly pay, which McDonald's is having to do anyway because of your wonderful minimum wage. That's why they're having to replace cashiers with kiosks, to have enough to pay everyone else the new minimum.
That'll mean extra work has to be done, and you know by whom? By the 2,500 people no longer needed to be cashiers.
The ones that are remaining will be doing that anyway, moron. That's how they'll be able to earn that $15 an hour. They'll have to be more productive as a result. Your solution is something that already has to happen, and you don't have the first clue about it, do you? This is what you get from academics who sit in their ivory towers and judge the lives of us poor schlebs who are just trying to get by.
In other words, we'll actually deliver the promise of technical change, that it makes life better for the majority of people.
It does make life better for the majority when your holy government keeps their stupid, fat, greedy noses out of it. It's a little thing called Say's Law, which Marxists like you have to deny up and down a blue streak. It's the reason why we didn't begin starving after the farms were automated. In fact, we ate better, because food was now cheaper, and labor resources were freed up to do other things, jobs that didn't even exist in 1800. If you actually knew as much about economics as that worthless piece of toilet paper you call an economics degree claims, you'd understand that. By the way, some of those jobs that didn't exist in 1800 include these very same McDonald's cashier jobs. Cashiers didn't exist until the RITI Model 1 was invented in 1879, which meant that someone other than the owner or someone else with a financial interest in the company could be trusted to handle cash transactions. They have Say's law and mechanization to thank for their jobs. The very law you have to deny and the very technology you're going against now.
All of the people at McDonald's, and they have tens of thousands of employees.
They have 1.9 million employees. For crying out loud, you can just look this up. Didn't they teach you how to do that at Harvard and Yale?
Technology either improves the profits of capitalists or it improves the lives of workers.
It either does both of those things or it does neither. But if it weren't for the zero-sum fallacy, and if it weren't for long-discredited wage fund theory, you wouldn't have any arguments to make at all. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit like and subscribe? And to make sure I can keep producing content, support this channel by becoming a patron. And check out all the other great content here, like this video selected especially for you.